What you're about to engage in is a special recording of the Equity Challenge brought to you through United Way of Rhode Island in partnership with Slate Media. My name's Kevin Mata, and I'll be a facilitator and guide for this year's Equity Challenge journey. These are real stories told by real people meant to humanize the purpose of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and actually highlight the unity behind it. Welcome to the journey. We're excited to have you here. All right. Well, welcome to the Equity Challenge. I'm so excited that you're here with us as a part of our impromptu series. And I'm really excited to just have another Vigil at the table, but specifically Karla Vigil. Thank you for being here.
Vigils.
Absolutely. Yes. You got your sister will be on too. So Vanessa as well.
Shout out to Vanessa.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've been talking a lot already about what's happening, right? The state of the state, what's happening across our country. One of the things that, we connect on, especially as being Latinos and supporting our parents and our families and seeing a lot of what is happening across the nation. How are you dealing with that? How are, nonprofits? How are we supporting? What are we doing? Big questions.
Yeah, it's a big question, and it's something that feels heavy every day. So waking up and listening to the news and listening to new executive orders that are impacting our people, our community, our work is certainly a weight to carry. I'm often in deep reflection around what does this mean? How do we move forward?
Yeah.
What does fighting for the things that we believe in, which is justice and humanity, look like? These are all questions that I have that I don't necessarily have. They're like macro questions that I don't necessarily have the answers to. Every day I'm in a meeting with someone who's facing either a hardship because they've lost funding, or somebody lost their job, or somebody's trying to start a nonprofit and they're finding it very challenging.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems very exhausting and hopeless. However, I just read an article recently. I do trainings. I facilitate trainings in schools all around what it means to have inclusive classrooms, what it means to really put students at the center of teaching, of learning. And I'm going to be honest with you. I can't go into a classroom and facilitate a training around the history of racism and what it means when we're actually living through some really dark times. I think times that we've never expected, at least not at this moment, right? Not where we thought we were making progression, right?
There was so much progress happen. It felt like, right? I mean, we had organizations had employee resource groups.
Exactly.
The places were becoming more diverse. I mean, we had, Barack Obama in office. And I think that a lot of people were like, we made it. But to that point, we've seen such a slide back.
Yeah, and the truth is, so to that, yes, right? The truth is we've made some progression, I think, in what we felt were successes. But the reality and the truth is here right now. So something happened.
This is reality.
And so how do you find opportunities in times of crisis is something I've really been holding and thinking about. How do I enter a space if I'm facilitating a training with teachers who are really actually on the ground of what's happening, and feeling the impact of teaching students who might be undocumented or their families are undocumented, or even saying the words diversity or equity and inclusion and knowing that there is all of these things are deemed as illegal, right, at this moment. But where do we find opportunity? And so one of the things that we've been just talking about at our org is support. It's looking at this as a way of really showing up and weaning out with these new orders that are coming up that affect DEI in the classroom is the performative DEI work. So I do think there was a momentum, and folks were not everyone, but it was so popular, it got commercialized, it got performative, it was being done without fidelity. I do think this is a time to actually show why this work is so important and how it actually creates large impact. I think we do need to have a conversation of how we unify people and what does it mean to unify, even if we share different perspectives.
Absolutely.
From being really radical to just wanting the same things that you want for, your children, so finding common ground and having those important conversations. But overall, we're also looking at like, what are people saying they need right now? Is it funding? Is it coaching? Is it mentorship? Is it just a community to even have these conversations? So we're, as an org, we're trying to think about how do we be responsive right now and kind of step away from like, there's a lot of planning going on and it's hard to plan.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when COVID happened, like you're planning, you're like, wait, what am I doing right now? Like the world has shut down. So being true to what we believe in like uplifting emergent strategy approaches in our work and who we are, it's like, how do we pause and be like, wait a minute, what's actually going on right now?
Yeah.
What do people need and how do we respond to that?
And that's hard, right? Because one of the things that you talked about was you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is listen to the news, right? Or
Yeah.
I do the same thing too. I wake up every morning and I'm immediately going to the news.
It's a
But
really bad habit.
it's a bad habit, but also it's one, and this is where I want to like kind of talk to you about it because I'm like, is it a place of privilege to not have to listen and watch the news? Because I do have some colleagues that I think in good intentionality will say like, oh, I don't watch the news, so I don't know what's happening. And I go, I'm jealous. I'm like that you don't have to watch the news. I have to watch it because I'm worried about my own safety, my family's safety, my nephew's safety, the safety of the 99 employees I'm responsible for at United Way, plus my community, DAPE. Like, it would be irresponsible of me to not be informed and not watch the news. But how do we do that while still, again, weaning out what is actually relevant, what's happening, and also not letting it, become this hard thing for us because it is harder, right? We carry the burden. Like, I'm jealous of people that are like, I don't have to watch the news. I'm like, I wish I wish I were you. I don't want to have to watch the news either.
But you feel like a sense of responsibility.
Correct.
100%. 100%. Yeah, we do this work. Why? Because we know the struggle.
Mhm.
All right. It's part of our story for many, not all, but for many.
Yep.
Right. I'm an immigrant. My parents left our country in El Salvador because there was a civil war. My parents went through a war, and there are some horror stories, and we came here for an opportunity. And so what we know is how to fight, and what we know is how to help and serve.
Correct.
And try to change things to create environments that support people no matter who they are, what backgrounds they have, what experiences they have. So in a way, it's in us.
Yeah.
But it also can consume us.
Mhm.
And we deserve to feel joy and we deserve to be at peace. So 100% to your point, I'm not mad if somebody needs to take a step back from the news to just preserve their mind. Because I think, this is another conversation I was having with my husband is around what is psychologically happening to us right now? Because this is psychological.
Oh, we've been in fight mode.
This is psychological. Even the conversations that the, right engage in and how they talk and manipulate and really gaslight you. I feel like I'm living in the gaslit era, of like, wait, what is happening and why are you saying that? And, you're saying you're following the laws, but you're really not. No, you're following the Constitution. So there is a big psychological impact that has been going on since COVID.
Correct.
So it's on top of...
We barely got out of that. And we know
Exactly.
who was impacted by COVID, again, are our most marginalized and at-risk communities. And now who's being impacted again are our most marginalized and impacted communities. So we never get the break. The break doesn't happen.
Yes. And I do want to also name that we have so much power in us and our people and who we are. And I don't want to put that under, like, sweep it
Yeah.
under the rug, like name all these hardships. And,
No, there's a lot of
there's a
strength
lot
in
of
there,
beauty, there's a
resiliency.
lot of power. And so, again, my question is, like, how do we actually raise up, stand up together during this time, help each other?
Yeah.
So things that we're thinking is, how do we help other orgs? How do we donate to other orgs if we're, if we're okay financially? How do we actually support each other in a time of crisis and not let fear or worry
Yeah.
consume us? And I think that's why I'm being really mindful with folks, especially with fear. Like, this is not a time to retreat. This is not a time to be fearful, but this is a time for those who have the power, for those who have financial means, to stand up and to show what it means to actually say something and use your voice against, yes, the government. That's what we're living in today.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time, right? We know in history, during the 60s, the civil rights movement.
We're back at it again.
The women's rights movement. These are things that happened, that people stood up against the government. So we didn't think we were going to live it, because we're like, what? Y'all did all that work. We're going to keep on fighting. But our fight looked different. Like, we were just in, fighting, in districts or in schools or institutions, saying, no, we need to belong. We need to be inclusive. But now the fight is actually bigger. And now I think it's asking us to do something different. And so what can we take from, history to implement today? And what, what does that actually look like in action? And I loved that Harvard took a stance. Y'all have an endowment. Use that endowment for what it's for.
Correct.
Times like this.
And that's what it is
and
for.
Stand up, because then people will follow, and people will stand up, and people will not allow what is going on. And the biggest power, and I know this sounds maybe like, cliche and things like that, but people have power. The power is in our people. And so
Me too.
Less support, less uplift, less respond. Let's listen to the people and hear what it is that they actually need, and let's respond in that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means throwing away all the plans that you had and being like, nope, what do you need today, next month, during this very, very sensitive and dire time?
Absolutely. So if there's something that folks who are listening or watching the Equity Challenge this week, if they can take away, they work for a large corporate organization, they might be eliminating DEI language, right, for their safety or for whatever it is that they're doing it. What can they do from that perspective? Or if there's someone who this is their first entry point into really understanding what DEI is, what can they be doing to help support and stand for something?
My first thing is not retreating. So we cannot retreat during this time. You can be strategic, but you can't retreat. This is a moment in time that it might seem surreal for people, but we are in a very sensitive time that calls for people to push harder, to fight in a different way, not the same way we were fighting before. And I'm not sure exactly what that means, what that looks like and sounds like right now. I have some ideas, but not 100% sure. And then folks that are just getting into the work and trying to understand, that's what you need, is try to understand. When we do our trainings, one of the things we mention is seek to understand, ask questions, be curious. And from the other side of it is, what's our obligation to have these kinds of conversations with people that might not agree or that might not be able to define what equity is? There's a lot of misinformation. We are living in a time where we overconsume information, where our brains literally was not formed in that way to take information every second of the day. So we have this big problem of not understanding what things are. I mean, there are many times people cannot even define what DEI is. So you define it. So one of the things I do tell a lot of or suggest to a lot of organizations is spell out what you're doing.
Correct.
Just spell it out. Don't even use the acronyms right now. Spell out exactly what you're doing. Spell out how you respect and honor people with different perspectives, different backgrounds, different identities. If you do that, you can't fight that. Like, you can't say
Yeah.
that's bad, you know?
And I love that you share that because it's such a simple thing, right? And I know that like our workplaces, our environments have taught us, give it to me in bullets. Give
Yeah.
me the highlights. Twitter, it's like 240 characters the most, right? Keep your caption short. We've curated such an environment where we don't talk these things out, right? We don't actually take the time to explain the meaning behind it. We don't write out full emails anymore with contemplations and thoughts and process, right? So we're only getting a portion of people because our demands have asked that. So one thing I think, we can even remind people is just take the time, right? Pick up the phone, make the phone call, right? Don't just shoot the text. It's write out the full email. Give your thoughts the space that they need because they might actually be surprising to you and to someone else too in that process, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Again, we're in the era of AI and technology, and I don't think, we talk about that enough, but that had to do and contributed to where we are today in many ways. So technology has been huge. And I think one thing I want to mention before, we end our conversation, is we need to be reaching out to our young people and supporting our young people and having conversations with them as well. That this work is important. There are different generations of folks that have a different understanding of what this work is and what it looks like. And I don't know how that, I think is shifting for our younger folks. And so bringing them into the conversations about like what they feel about what is going on in, their worlds, that injustices might show up and what they feel that they can do about it is super, super important.
I love that. And to that point, I was at a conference earlier this week too, and someone was saying, again, right, that 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, they ask questions for clarity. They have no shame in it. They're like, what does that mean?
That's right.
Or they're just like, or they're interrupt your thought. You're like, I know you want to talk about this, but did you see that over there? We need to find a way to regain that process again. And I think it's beautiful to engage our youth because it might remind us of that youthfulness that we do have, that potential to be able to see things and want to learn from different perspectives. So I appreciate you sharing channeling our youth because it's been a theme throughout this week as well with the Equity Challenge.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Is this their world? I mean, I don't know about you. I'm
I know.
about to be 45. I'll be gone in hopefully like 50 years or so. But this is not it's my world now, but I do the things I do for my children, my grandchildren, because eventually one thing that is a fact, we're all going to be gone.
Yep.
So what is the world that we want to leave behind and also want to teach our children? This is theirs. And so this is why technology is also like an important, I think, element to consider when we're thinking about change.
Absolutely.
Like they're getting all the information where? TikTok. TikTok. I don't have TikTok. But
Hi, Joe.
But TikTok, Instagram, and they're getting it in like
short bits. Yeah.
Very bits.
Exactly. It's quick.
Adults too. Don't get me wrong, adults too. But what does that mean in terms of how, how we're developing the change that we need in certain spaces? Like, are they getting it? Do they get it? I don't, I have a 19-year-old and a 24-year-old, and I have conversations with them, but a lot of times my 19-year-old is like, what's going on? I'm in college and, I have an exam.
They're living their life. Yeah, exactly.
So, and some,
and that should,
some
and I
not.
want them to, yeah.
Right. And some not, like some, I think a little bit definitely more involved, but they will tell us what we need and how we need to shift.
We just got to listen.
How the adults need to shift. And as you know, that can be a hard thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. If you're just tuning into the Equity Challenge, I invite you to continue to follow us along this journey. And thanks again, Karla E. Vigil. Thank you.